So picture this. Out in the huge, high desert of Idaho, a foreign country is building a new military facility. The second this was announced, it kicked off a massive political firestorm. Some people are calling it a grave threat to our national security. So what's really going on with this deal to train Qatari pilots in America? Is all the alarm justified? Let's break it down.
It all kicked off on October 10th. The Pentagon announces this finalized agreement that, to a lot of people, just seemed to come out of nowhere. The deal? To let the Qatari Air Force train its top-tier fighter pilots right here on U.S. soil.
Now, when you hear that a foreign military is setting up shop in America, who's the first country that pops into your head?
Yeah, no, not Russia.
And it's not China either.
It's Qatar, the small, super gas-rich nation. And that is the detail that absolutely ignited this whole controversy.
Okay, so before we dive into all the backlash and the arguments, let's just separate the rumors from the reality and look at what this deal actually is.
So this is really the core of the whole misunderstanding. The claim you heard flying around was that Qatar was getting its own sovereign base, under its own control. The reality, as the Pentagon clarified, is that it's a training hub inside an existing American base, and it's operating completely under U.S. Air Force command.
So here's the deal. This is a facility, fully paid for by Qatar, and it's located at Mountain Home Air Force Base. And the reason for it is actually pretty simple. Qatar is a tiny country. I mean, it's smaller than Connecticut. It just doesn't have the open airspace for its pilots to practice the complex moves they need to master in their brand-new American-made F-15QA fighter jets. The Idaho desert? It's the perfect training ground.
And you gotta know, this wasn't some last-minute decision. An environmental assessment for this was done way back in 2022. Actually, this training facility has been in the works for years. It's all part of a massive, multi-billion-dollar arms sale.
But for the critics, yeah, none of those details really mattered. The announcement was met with this immediate, just ferocious backlash, and it was all framed as a serious threat to national security. You had former White House strategist Steve Bannon putting it really bluntly, there should never be a military base of a foreign power on the sacred soil of America. And that sentiment right there, it became a huge rallying cry for the opposition. Then you had others like Laura Loomer using much more inflammatory language. She was tapping into these deep-seated fears, connecting the deal to accusations that Qatar funds groups like Hamas and the Muslim Brotherhood. Now, those are allegations that Qatar has denied over and over again. For so many critics, this deal just brought back these really dark memories of the 2019 terrorist attack at Naval Air Station Pensacola. That's where a Saudi aviation trainee killed 3 American service members. So they were drawing a direct line, basically arguing that we're making the same mistakes all over again.
So, faced with this wave of outrage, what was the Pentagon's official story? Well, the administration moved fast to defend the agreement. They argued that the critics were just fundamentally misunderstanding what modern military alliances look like.
The defense secretary framed it as a strategic win. He focused on this key military concept, interoperability. It sounds complicated, but it just means making sure allied forces can fight together perfectly, using the same tactics and the same equipment. The thinking is, by training Qatari pilots here, the U.S. makes sure a key partner is completely in sync with our own forces.
The administration also pointed out that, hey, this is hardly a new idea. Singapore has been training at the very same Idaho base since 2009. German pilots trained for decades down in New Mexico, and right now 14 different NATO allies train together in Texas. So from the Pentagon's point of view, this is just business as usual.
But to really understand why this deal happened, you have to zoom out and look at the bigger picture. And that picture includes a massive U.S. base that happens to be in Qatar.
And this brings up the most obvious question, right? The one that was kind of missing from a lot of the initial debate. What does the United States get out of this whole arrangement?
Well, the answer starts with this number. More than 10,000. That's about how many American troops are stationed in Qatar as we speak. And this is the real aha moment of the whole story. Qatar is home to Udeid Air Base. And that's not just a U.S. base. It is the largest American military installation in the entire Middle East. It's the nerve center for all American air operations in the region. That one fact completely reframes this entire debate.
And this partnership, it's been getting deeper for a long time, across multiple administrations. Qatar has invested over $8 billion of its own dollars to build and upgrade Al Udeid just for American use. In 2022, President Biden designated Qatar a major non-NATO ally, And more recently, President Trump signed an order committing the U.S. to defend Qatar if it's ever attacked. So we are left with two completely different ways of interpreting the exact same set of facts. Is this a secret, reckless deal, or is it a smart, routine strategy?
On one side, you have the critics who see a reckless deal that puts foreign interests above our own homeland security. To them, it's an unacceptable risk. But on the other side, the Pentagon sees a totally routine agreement that strengthens a vital, two-way partnership. For them, it's a strategic win that solidifies U.S. influence in a really important part of the world.
In the end, this quiet little facility out in the Idaho desert has become the flashpoint for a much, much bigger debate about America's role in the world. And it leaves us with one last big question. Is this the new model for American alliances? One where partnerships get so deeply intertwined that the lines of our own national defense actually start to blur?